In a world where sports have stretched beyond the fabric of reality and podcasts became as common as potholes, there were two guys in Morgantown, West Virginia who desired to do something different. These two guys came up with an idea to bring real life back to the arena of sports and hopefully be somewhat entertaining along the way. These two guys are certainly no experts, and they're definitely not comedians. They just think they are. This is the Extra Medium Podcast, and here are those two guys.
And here we go. Welcome, everyone, to Season 2, Episode 14 of the Extra Medium Sports Podcast. We are officially at the end of Season 2 right now. I'm not sure how we made it this far, but we did. I am Justin Jackson, sports editor of the Dominion Post. To my right today in the co-pilot's chair is Michael Griffith of the Dominion Post. Michael is filling in for Matt Amory today. Matt's embarking on a new line of employment, and he's currently in training for that new job. But we hope to have him back very soon for Season 3.
I wonder how many episodes Season 3 will have. We're like an HBO show around here, you know? Just never know. Got a great show for you guys today. We're going to be discussing last night's heartbreaking loss by the 11th-ranked WVU women's basketball team to Kentucky in the second round of the NCAA tournament. The Mountaineers fell by a single point, 74-73, when Gia Cook's final shot rolled right off the rim with time running down. Very heartbreaking loss. We'll have that on the show today.
We will take a broader scope of that loss and try to put it in perspective in terms of everything that the Mountaineers accomplished this season and what it means for the Big 12. We also just had the boys and girls state basketball championships wrap up in Charleston. Morgantown High was eliminated in the Class Quad A state semifinals in both of those tournaments. So we have a lot to discuss today. We will also have Spencer Ripchick of the Dominion Post joining us in studio today in just a second. But first, Michael, let's tell the good people who sponsors our show.
Absolutely. Our Extra Medium Sports Podcast is brought to you by The Hotel Morgan. Whether you're interested in hosting a sophisticated corporate retreat, a joyful baby shower, or a spectacular wedding reception, Hotel Morgan provides a backdrop steeped in nearly a century of Morgantown history. Reimagined with boutique comfort and 1920s era charm, we take pride in making every event a memorable and stylish experience.
And Michael, where can you find our podcast?
If you're looking, you can always find a link to the Extra Medium Sports Podcast at www.dominionpost.com or find us on social media, on Spotify, and on YouTube.
Okay, it is now time to bring in Spencer Ripchick, who was at the Hope Coliseum for the NCAA women's basketball tournament. There are literally 1,000 different ways we can go with Monday night's game between WVU and Kentucky, beginning with the 25,000 WVU fans who packed the Coliseum for the first two rounds. First round against Miami of Ohio, second round against Kentucky. Spencer, we'll just begin right there. What was your biggest takeaways from the weekend?
Yeah, I think Mountaineer Nation was set a task, and that was to sell out the stadium and bring a big impact to the game. And I think in both games, I think they really did that. That place was jamming. It was loud. Yeah. There was people sitting up in the nosebleeds, which I never thought people would sit up there because it's so steep. But people were sitting up there down on the floor where I was sitting for both of the games. It was very deafening. I think Kentucky's head coach Kenny Brooks even said like he couldn't even communicate with the other team, communicate with his players, and they were having a tough time communicating. So yeah, I think from that aspect, I think they knocked it out of the park. West Virginia did, and then. Even on the court with the play, I mean, they're 1 point shy, and like Sydney Shaw said, 9 out of 10 times that shot goes in, but that just happened to be the one time it missed.
Michael, you were in the crowd.
Yeah, I was there
for Monday's game. Were you in the nosebleeds? Where were you guys at?
It was general admission. We weren't quite in the nosebleeds, but I got a kid, so I'm trying to go as far away from people as I can. No, I'm kidding. He's fantastic at the games. He went to both games actually, which was great. My son, but no, we were with my wife and my son and some friends and her dad, and man, it was just I was driving home on Saturday from the boys' state tournament and was listening. To the game and trying to watch it on ESPN as much as I could. I don't text and drive, don't worry. And man, it just it brought emotions in my body, in my soul. Honestly, hearing the crowd and seeing the crowd, and I wasn't even there on Saturday. It literally made me feel emotional. Honestly, as a lifelong WVU fan, but being there last night was incredible, man. I mean, just seeing that place fill. I got there a little early, so it wasn't quite full when we got there, and then just kind of watching it fill up over time, kind of like a student section at a football game, just opened the floodgates and everybody started coming into that place. It was incredible. It was just a really good experience, and I think that these 3 days, honestly, these 4 days are going to change the trajectory of the program for the rest of time, which is cool to think about.
I want to get into that in just a second, but first I want to tell you guys a story on Saturday now. So for the first round game against Miami of Ohio, the game's at 5 o'clock. Kentucky and James Madison play at 2:30. So I'm thinking, like, I didn't really know what to expect crowd-wise. Like, I knew from earlier in the week, tickets had, sold out. They basically sold out in the first 2 hours. I didn't really know what to expect. Like, I knew it was going to be a good crowd. So on Saturday, I get to the Coliseum. Now, it's 12:30 in the afternoon. It's 2 hours before the Kentucky game against JMU, basically 4.5 hours before the WVU game. There were literally thousands of people at 12:30 in the afternoon on Saturday lined up already around the Coliseum waiting to get in. The the traffic had already backed down all the way down from the Coliseum down to the Star City Bridge in the right lane. We had talked a few weeks ago about like what kind of atmosphere they would actually get for a women's NCAA tournament. It far exceeded my expectations. I never thought you'd see a traffic jam, that's basically, and then on Monday, that traffic line had extended all the way across the bridge and was out towards the sheets on the other side there. Yeah. So it was, to that effect, it exceeded my expectations. It totally blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like that before for a women. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know if I've seen anything like that for a men's game.
Yeah, you're right.
As far as the traffic extending that far out. So to me, that will be my take. Just the chaos and how crazy it was for people trying to get into the Coliseum for a women's game.
Yeah. And
then obviously the game on Monday was, I don't know, it's a storyline that's been told many times when it comes to WVU athletics. Spence, when Gia takes that shot, what's your thoughts there? You had the good view down there.
Well, I thought it was a really good shot that she took. I think even Kenny Brooks said that was a good shot, and I think Mark Kellogg said that was a good shot, and Sydney said it was a good shot. It was what she wanted to do. She drove to the rim, shook the defender, and made the pulled-up jumper, and it just happened to just not fall, which, I guess from reading history, I haven't been here a while, almost a year now, but still, I guess this is just how it goes for West Virginia fans. I think the only saving grace was this year the West Virginia came back and won the backyard brawl, so I guess that was something good that they finally got over the needle, but then the season kind of dwindled after that. But yeah, it was just one of those things where it can go any way, and it just happened to not go the way for West Virginia.
It's funny you said that, Spencer, because like Justin Jackson beside me, if you guys have the chance, you really need to read his column that he wrote.
Thank you.
Because he made it was one paragraph that I will never, as a lifelong WVU fan, I was, not born here, but raised here from the time I was 1 year old, and a WVU fan. I've been through it all, like literally every heartbreaking loss for every sport. And Justin had a really good paragraph in his column saying, like, if things always went the way for WVU, then Pat McAfee makes those damn punts. Then Deshaun Butler gets up after tearing his ACL and leads WVU to the national championship over Duke. And there was one more I couldn't remember, but
the Major Harris.
Yeah, the Major Harris. Yes, yeah. Major Harris never gets hurt, and WVU wins the national championship against whoever that was.
Was that Notre Dame?
Yeah, Notre Dame. Correct. So yeah, that was just a really good way to sum it up. That is how. There are probably every fan base, even the blue bloods of college basketball, probably feel like that they get screwed every year, and when they win multiple national championships. But it really is kind of different for West Virginia. Like, it does seem like there is something about the athletics here that just is like a brick wall. You know?
What's interesting, I was kind of thinking about that today with the WVU fan base and what they've had to endure over the years, over the decades. Really. There are every program has the sad story, right? The heartbreaking moment. many of those, I kind of think of like Michigan, like with the Chris Webber timeout when they didn't have it and they lost in the Final Four. I mean, obviously that's a heartbreaking moment that's always going to be with that Michigan program. But Michigan's won national championships. They have a lot of good stories to go with those heartbreaking stories.
Sure.
UConn has sad moments, but they got a lot of good moments to go with the, and so on and so on. We could keep going. West Virginia doesn't have that great moment.
That big standout.
Right,
yeah,
right.
You're right.
But it's got a ton of those heartbreaking moments. And oh God, West Virginia fans, hats off to you for, getting up, going to work, believing and going through it year over year.
It's funny. I read a tweet last night that it was just maybe from a student, or it wasn't a member of the media or anything, but someone had tweeted and said that they literally heard a father telling his young daughter after the game, like, this is just how it goes. And it was just like, man, that really is how it goes. And then another one of my friends put up a picture on Facebook of his little baby nephew and said, hey, buddy, I love you, but I'm sorry we had to put you in this WVU life, So it's just things like that it really does feel like, we got a great rifle team, which is great. They just won their 21st national championship, but even like women's soccer in 2016, 2015, they lose in the national championship when they have one of the best teams that they've ever seen, and it's just like things like that just sit with you as a Mountaineer fan for sure.
Something I want to point out here. So Kentucky was the 5 seed, West Virginia was the 4 seed. Kentucky was 8-8 in the SEC. WVU finished 14-4 in the Big 12, finished second. Kentucky was 7th in the SEC. Now I look at that Kentucky lineup: 6'5", 6'5", 6'4", and to me, I think even the biggest diehard WVU fan would have to come out of that game Monday night, regardless of how West Virginia kept battling back to get back into the game. They were down like 11 or 12 points in the first half, came back to tie it at halftime, fell back behind by 12, 14 points in the third quarter, and then battled back and came down to the last shot of the game. But when you put it in perspective of what Kentucky had on the floor and what West Virginia had on the floor, is it hard to recognize that, hey, maybe Kentucky had the better team?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Especially when you consider the SEC as their conference that they play in. I mean, LSU, 1 seed. South Carolina, 2 seed. Texas, 1 seed. Vanderbilt, 2 seed.
Yeah.
I mean, Kentucky would probably be a top 4 team in the Big 12, in my opinion, with their size. They match up well against TCU.
That's kind of my point.
Yeah.
So
I absolutely think that the 8-8 SEC record might be a little off-putting or doesn't tell the whole story of their team, because they probably, I'd be curious to look at their schedule, their conference schedule, and see how many of those top teams they played. Maybe they had to play them twice too, So that's kind of my take on it, is look at the SEC overall as a conference and look at the Big 12 as a conference. And I'm not saying the Big 12 is bad, because we know the Big 12 is not bad, but LSU did just beat Texas Tech by 50 in the NCAA tournament,
right.
And Texas Tech was a top 25 team all year and battling for the regular season Big 12 title until probably the last couple of weeks. So that was a result that I kind of looked at that was like, oh wow, the SEC is way above in women's basketball.
Gia Cook shot. She takes in that pass, right? And there's like 7 seconds spent, something like that.
8.3. It was 8.3 once they inbound the ball. I think she took this shot at like 3 seconds. So.
Yeah, she makes. How do you describe that move? I mean, she makes a move
to
the left, right? Crosses
yeah.
over to the right,
yeah.
And Leone from Kentucky falls to the floor.
Broke her ankles.
And it's a 15-foot, 16-foot jumper?
Yeah.
That ball rolled. Did it hit every part of the rim?
The front part of the rim, and then it hit the back little bracket thing.
Yeah, it bounced like 4 times.
Bounced over.
How does that shot not go in?
Well, I think that's just... Yeah, I guess maybe the spin. I don't really know the physics, the spin on the ball or something like that. But it was a good shot opportunity. Like I said, it was the shot you had to take. I don't know if that was the game. I mean, you had Sydney Shaw inbounding the ball, so
right.
I assume that Gio was going to be the one to take the game-winning shot no matter where it was. But I also think
It's got to go to Gia, right? Because Gia's got the size,
right?
Yeah,
and she had the shooting stroke.
And everybody's probably Kentucky's probably looking at Sydney Shaw to take that shot.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, Sydney Shaw had the hot hand. I think she had like 3 or 4 3-pointers in that fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think once you, I don't know. I think somebody said that, that Gia, like when she got that opportunity, she was going to take the shot. I think the game plan might have been to pass it one more time. But once she shook the defender, you got to take the shot, wide open shot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was just a shot, and it just didn't happen to go. And then they almost had an opportunity there at the end of the game.
Yeah.
With Jordan Harrison forcing the turnover, but at that point, there wasn't enough time on the clock to get a shot off.
Jordan Harrison's legacy. 3 years ago, she came in here to Morgantown as the 5'6", 5'5" little playmaker. She followed Mark Kellogg from Stephen F. Austin, and that was kind of how we knew her when she first arrived here.
Yeah.
3 years later, is she? What will be your take on Jordan? Like 10 years from now, when they say, "Hey, Michael, did you watch Jordan Harrison play when she was? How good was she? What's your take on Jordan?
Give me that. Yeah. Is what I'm going to say. I'll say, give me that, because that's her name now, right? Jordan, give me that Harrison. She made another great steal last night to keep the game alive when she kind of pickpocketed Strack for Kentucky right there. But yeah, I told somebody last night in the stands, it's not often that 2 years in a row in this program we have seen generational players that will never be forgotten, and J.J. Quinterly, obviously, and now Jordan Harrison. And I think one thing that stood out to me in Mark Kellogg's press conference, I forget which one it was, but he said that Jordan didn't even take a visit here before she committed to West Virginia.
She just basically followed him. Right.
She's going from Texas to West Virginia. She's from the Midwest, right? So or somewhere out there. So she's probably never been this way, never seen snow possibly in her life.
Right. She's from Oklahoma City originally, right?
I mean, that really stood out to me, and that kind of just hearing that little tidbit of information kind of makes sense when you look at Jordan Harrison and how her career has played out. They say good things come to good people, right? That do things the right way, and Jordan's done the things the right way. She's never cut a corner, she's never made an excuse for anything, and she's just continued to show up night in and night out and just be a dog for the team, So
when you're, I've always been told by other coaches, basketball coaches over the years, when your best player is your hardest worker, then you got something good going. Yeah. And I think that's Jordan Harrison. Yeah. I think by far she knew she had to work because she obviously didn't have the size. She's not 6 foot, 6'1". Right. So she's always had to kind of been that player who had to be, use what talent she did have, develop those, and work harder than everyone else. Yeah. I think that's something that she carried with her to WVU and then over her career at WVU.
And she had to have some weight on her shoulders this year. I mean, you're replacing a WNBA draft pick, like one of the best players, probably in my opinion, the best player the team has ever had in its program, and you got to take over for her, and you have a better season than you did last year. Like that is that's just incredible to think about. And I truly do think that Jordan Harrison has an all-time spot in the history of West Virginia women's basketball.
All right, you ready for the big question?
Oh yeah.
What's next? How big will how will the WVU fan base continue to take to this program now that they've kind of experienced this regional? And what's next for Coach Kellogg and the program?
Yeah. Well, I think this is the expectation now. I think now they've set the standard that this should be happening every year. West Virginia should be hosting a NCAA tournament regional every year. They should be competing for the Big 12 championship every year. And if now, I mean, I forget the saying, but you're a criminal of your own success or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is the standard. I think it's going to be really hard to repeat next year, especially with all the losses that they're having. No Sydney Shaw, no Jordan Harrison, no Kiara Wheeler. They got a lot of holes to fill, but I think this is a really good starting point and a really good recruiting factor. I think even in like one of my stories today, I was writing like even like football recruits who were at that game yesterday would commit to West Virginia. Just seeing the fans that came out for the game on a Monday at 5:00, which is not an easy time to come for a game because that means you got to get there at 2:00, which means most of you guys, most people aren't working at that time. And there's still 12,850 fans in the crowd. So I think this is a really good starting point, and I think Mark Kellogg needs to get – I mean, he said he was going to wake up and realize, like, I need to go back to work today, but I think you need to immediately benefit off of this massive success that you had this season, even though it wasn't making it past the Sweet 16, which I think will definitely be a thing down the line. Like, Mark Kellogg needs to get to the Sweet 16 at some point and press on. I think Ren Baker, he said that all the NIL is going to be based on the NIL that he's going to give out based on revenue sharing is going to be how much you bring in. And I think West Virginia, I know they don't get a lot of money because the NCAA takes a lot of it. But, I mean, the amount of people that were here this weekend wearing West Virginia stuff, I mean, you should definitely pump money into this program because it has success and brings in a big audience.
I agree. I'm glad you said that because two things about how fans reacted. I mean, on social media, obviously, it's very glaring with WVU fans when they are upset, and you can tell when they're happy when it comes to how they react to sports. And the reaction of even a heartbreaking loss like that last night, the fans gave the players a standing ovation walking off the court. Everyone on social media is just they're not really focusing on the result of that game last night. They're focusing on the bigger picture and how well the season went. And this is, like we said, this is a program changing season for the women's basketball team. I mean, that doesn't happen often at all for anybody. You know what I mean? Like that it really is. And I was thinking this morning how Mark Kellogg's only been here for 3 years, but it really feels like it's been 10 already. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like it's been a decade with this guy at the helm of this program. Like, and it's just the progress is incredible. And, Mountaineer fans showed up for the weekend, and I 100% believe them to show up next season when this team hits the court again.
I'm interested on your take now for next season. So for crowd wise, now obviously next season, when you get in the non-conference season, there's going to be a bunch of games against schools you probably never heard of before. But obviously the schedule eventually beefs up. Games next season. I mean, obviously you're not going to get 13,000, but what would be a realistic expectation? 5, 6?
Yeah.
I mean, what? How much will fans take this momentum and realize, hey, this is a program worth investing time and money into, and do you get that bump for next season?
I absolutely think you do. Mark Kellogg, he's kind of been vocal about his goal for regular season games being that lower bowl kind of being full in the you got the 2-tiered seating in the Coliseum, and I mean that probably holds what 7.
The lower
8?
bowl, I believe, is just under 7.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
Probably not as many, but I mean, dude, that would make a great atmosphere for any game, even a men's game. The fans can get loud when it's just the bottom of the bowl there, but I think that's a realistic.
Will students take to the team next year?
Yeah, I think so, especially with the new student section that's coming out. That's just exciting in itself that you'll be able to be a part of a student section that'll be behind the basket and stuff like that. So I think that'll draw. And we saw that at the tournament, right? The students got to sit behind the baskets last night and on Saturday because they added the seats to the original student section.
I wasn't sure. Is that where they had the students?
Yeah. Well,
I thought they were all just kind of spread.
No, I think
out.
The students were behind each basket in those first sections. You can kind of tell when they were getting the "Let's Go Mountaineers" chant going and everything like that. But no, I'm not saying that'll be every game. That the bowl won't be, but they'll sell a record number of season tickets again. They'll probably break they probably won't break the attendance record now because it was set over the weekend before. But I think that this is, like I said, just a completely trajectory changing season for the women's team.
Before we tackle the broader scope of the Big 12 and where it seems to be fitting in among the power conferences and all of college athletics, Michael, why don't we take a small break here, and how about throwing in a plug for our sponsor?
Yeah, absolutely. The Extra Medium Sports Podcast is brought to you by the Hotel Morgan. Host your guests in an elegant setting utilizing our refined meeting spaces, including 2 dedicated boardrooms, and state-of-the-art conference technology. Elevate your event with delicious catering and craft cocktail service delivered by our on-site cafe and bar, Anvil and X.
I want to quickly get back to the WVU women's basketball team here for just a second to kind of introduce this particular take leading into the Big 12. WVU for the entire season had to scratch and claw and basically had to win the Big 12 tournament just to get the right to host. Now, if you kind of go back through the course of the regular season, they started off as like maybe a 7 or an 8 seed, moved up to a 6, moved up to a 5, and then they, by the bracketologist predictions, they were stuck at a 5 for like a month. And then, of course, they went on to win the Big 12 tournament, beat TCU, and that bumped them up into the number 4 seed. My thought all season long was the team was being underrated by the bracketologists, and the Big 12 wasn't getting enough respect as a conference in women's basketball. My question for you two guys now, after seeing the type of team that Kentucky had with the size they had, 6'5", 6'5", 6'4", the guards they had, knowing that they were only 500 in the SEC and the 7th place team in the SEC, was it a lack of respect, or did the bracketologists have it right all season long?
Well, I mean, you put it out that way. I think the bracketologists did have it right all season. I mean, Kentucky's,
it's all about how you frame the question.
Yeah, I mean, Kentucky's not one of the best teams in the SEC, and then obviously West Virginia won the Big 12 tournament, so they're obviously the best team in the Big 12, unless you want to say TCU is still better than them, even though they lost in that tournament game. But, I mean, there's a bunch of more SEC teams that I could name that, I mean, Texas absolutely obliterated Oregon. I think they won by 50, and they probably will do the same.
South Carolina kills everyone.
Yeah, South Carolina.
Except for UConn, but I mean.
Those schools are just in a league of their own. I don't think the Big 12 has that yet. I mean, like you could say TCU, and then maybe West Virginia can be that team in the Big 12, but like just in like size comparison, I mean, West Virginia hadn't faced anybody like the two forwards that they had faced yesterday. And
Clara Strack can play.
Yeah, and she's the first team all SEC, but that's just one of them. Like South Carolina's got multiple of those players. Texas has multiple of those players. It would have been interesting to see if like West Virginia were to play one of those games, how far off they'd be. But I mean, the best in the Big 12 went up against one of the top 5 teams, top 7, or you said there's
seventh place.
Yeah.
In the SEC, they were 8-8. They
lost. I think they lost in the quarterfinals to South Carolina.
Right.
But yeah, that's the comparison right now, and I mean they're pretty. I would say they're neck and neck. I mean, I would say probably 5. West Virginia wins 50% of the games, and then Kentucky wins 50% of the games they played. But yeah, that's how it stacks up right now.
I guess what my broader question here is concerning the Big 12, and now we can incorporate all sports into this. Maybe men's basketball might be a little bit of an outlier because the Big 12, I think, in men's basketball can sort of compete at that national level. The other sports, though, football, women's basketball, baseball, whatever you want to throw into the statement of we're one of the best teams in the Big 12 on a national setting. What does that actually really mean? Does it hold much water?
Well, I think men's basketball is probably the outlier.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one exception.
Because I think men's basketball. I think the Big 12 is probably the best conference in college basketball, and that's not me being biased. I didn't really follow too much heavily of the men's team. Justin covered most of the games, but I still watched, and the Big 12 just seemed like Arizona. I think is probably the best team in the tournament still. Mm-hmm. I mean, they struggled there in their last matchup, and against Arkansas should be an interesting matchup. But I think
they struggled against Jared Calhoun and Utah State.
Yeah, so I mean but I still think they're the most complete team. I think a lot of people thought they were the most complete team other than Duke, but Duke's got a lot of injuries. But yeah, I mean football, I still think they're probably the 3rd best conference. I mean, you look at what happened to Texas Tech this year. In their college football playoff game, they looked like a fish out of water. Their offense didn't know how to run anything or anything like that, and they got beat. And the Big Ten, obviously, they just won the national championship, and the SEC's always got like 4 or 5 teams in the college football playoff, and they compete. Even though people say, "Oh, they shouldn't be in," well, they make an impact. And then the ACC, Miami. I mean, Miami's kind of an outlier too because the rest of the ACC is not that great. But yeah, I mean, I think other than men's basketball, I think still the Big 12 is probably the third best conference in sports, in the main sports like football, men's basketball, women's basketball.
As a whole, you're talking
about.
Yeah.
I still think they're the third best conference, which, I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, those other two conferences have been around for a while, and they've been the best for a while, and they have a lot of money. And the Big 12, I think the Big 12 is slowly catching up, though, because Texas Tech is pumping money into those programs. BYU is pumping money into its program. Kansas is doing the same thing in their basketball program. So, yeah.
Michael, you are obviously a WV fan of the Big 12. If you were happen to walking along the street, say you're out on vacation somewhere and you're walking down the street and you come across, you meet up with another SEC fan or Big Ten fan and you say, well, so-and-so's top team in the Big 12. What do you think the reaction is from that SEC fan or that Big Ten fan? Do they roll their eyes?
They probably do.
Is there respect for the Big 12? I mean, what's your take?
No, yeah, I think there's respect for the Big 12. And Spencer made a good point about men's basketball. Big 12 being one of the top conferences in men's basketball. But I think the good question to ask is the gap between the top.
You just took you. Go ahead. Keep going.
That's why I'm in the co-pilots. What I'm saying? I got to keep you on your toes here.
Is that gap widening?
Well, not even that. Not even that. I'm going to put it a different way.
Okay.
Is the gap between the top two and the Big 12 wider than the Big 12 and the rest?
Very good.
Does that make sense?
Yes. No. Absolutely.
And I think that Brett Yormark and the conference and everyone has done well to shorten the gap between the Big 12 and the Big 10 and the SEC. He talked about the Big 10 winning a football title. That's their back-to-back football titles because Ohio State won the year before as an 8 seed, right? So like that just tells you the talent of that conference in football. But I think that's the mark we should try to focus on when it comes to comparing the conferences because you're not going to get on the same level as these. You'll probably never reach. Like, let's be honest. The Big 12 overall will never, ever reach the level or be equal with the SEC and the Big 10.
But you could close the gap.
But that's what I'm saying.
Right,
yeah. Focus on the gap rather than focusing on the levels. You know what I'm saying? Focusing on having the same thing because you're not going to ever have the same thing as those conferences unless you're a member of those conferences, which you probably never will be. So, in my opinion, it's just keep doing what you're doing. The trajectory in the past since COVID, has been pretty good for the Big 12. They're relevant on a national stage, but your question is very good about asking, an SEC or a Big 10. But of course they're going to probably just laugh and say, oh, we're the Big 10 and we're the SEC. But I think it's important to keep the gap where it is and try to close it even more like they have done so far.
Here's the other side. I'm going to play devil's advocate. Here's the other side of it. So now we are getting ready to move into the Sweet 16, right? One of the most exciting times of the year. Men's basketball, women's basketball, both tournaments are now officially in the Sweet 16. Big 12 women, 1 team in the Sweet 16. Big 12 men, 3 teams in the Sweet 16. The SEC and Big Ten both have way more in women's basketball. The number is a little bit more comparable on the men's side.
Yeah.
The 3 teams on the men's side, obviously Arizona, Houston, and Iowa State. I think they all have a great chance of moving into the Elite 8. So, again, the men's basketball side of the Big 12 is kind of the exception to the rule. TCU on the women's side, plays Virginia in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, just upset Iowa.
They upset Iowa. So probably you're going to get TCU into the Elite 8, which they will meet up with South Carolina, and then you're going to find out just how much of a gap there actually is. But the Big 12 got 7 teams. Only 7 from the Big 12 made it into the men's tournament. 3 are still alive. I got the number. I got to make sure I got these numbers right. The SEC got 10 teams into the tournament. The Big 10 got 9. So even though the Big 12 might be the best men's basketball they're not getting as many teams in.
No, and you think about one of those 7 is an automatic qualifier, so really only 6 got at-larges, and not even half your conference, not even close to half your conference, really. So, I mean, that's a real interesting
the Big
stat
10
right
has
there.
6 teams in the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
I mean, that's pretty impressive.
that is very impressive.
6 into the Sweet 16 for the Big Ten.
Yeah, and then think about how many teams they have. I mean, not even all of the Big Ten makes the Big Ten tournament, I think, because they don't have enough space for all of their teams. I know it's like that with the ACC. But no, I mean, look at a team like Nebraska, too. They're in the Big Ten 4 seed. They just got their first 2 NCAA tournament wins in program history this year. And here they are in the Sweet 16, and they're going to be playing another Big Ten team in Iowa, the 9 seed, who just upset Florida, the number 1 and the defending national champions. So, I mean, what can you say? and the winner of that game might get Big Ten opponent Illinois in the Elite Eight. So who's got to play Houston, which we know is Houston. So they went to the national championship last year and lost to Florida, obviously. So yeah, I think Spencer makes a good point about Arizona probably being the best team in the field, but the Big Ten is and the SEC too. I mean, you got Texas there as an 11 seed. The only double-digit seed to go into the Sweet 16 this year, which is usually not what we see. And Texas was a first 4 team.
Right.
They had to win 3 games in 6 days.
They had to go to Dayton.
So, that's impressive right there in itself. So I think Virginia was on the women's side too. Or no, I'm sorry, not Virginia. There was another team. That slipped my mind. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's just I think that you are seeing a little bit of around the postseason time. You're seeing that gap rear its head a little bit, I guess you could say, when it comes to the must-win games and stuff like that.
If I could switch sports here real quick, college baseball, the Big 12 is already, and Spence helped me out with this earlier today, the Big 12's already fallen behind in college baseball. They've got 2 teams ranked in the top 25 at the moment. West Virginia being the highest ranked team at 17. Arizona State is also in there at 22. The SEC's got, what, Spence, 10?
10, yeah.
And Florida just dropped out, so they had 11.
Yeah.
And there's a wide, in college baseball, that gap is wide in college baseball between the SEC and pretty much everyone else. I'm so tired of hearing about the SEC. And college football, Spence, as you know, the SEC, again, is the king in college football. The Big Ten is also right there with it. The Big 12 doesn't have that respect in college football. Just your thoughts here on, kind of bring us in where, you think the Big 12 fits in the overall scope and, football and baseball.
Yeah, well, I think the scary thing is that the SEC and the Big Ten are they're teams that used to be really bad. Like if you look at like Vanderbilt and football and those schools
Nebraska.
are getting Nebraska and basketball.
Yeah.
Those teams are getting good, and that's the scary thing because they used to have just like 3 teams that are really good, but now like all those teams can compete. I mean, you look at Missouri and football and the SEC, and like I said, Vanderbilt and all those schools that were really bad, and I think Mississippi State's kind of the only one that's still bad. But all those teams are getting really good, and like even in the Big Ten, some of the bad teams they're closing the gap on those. Oh no, it's not just the 3 or 4 teams in the top. I think the Big Ten in football has still got a ways to go to shorten that gap, but they still have a lot of good teams. I mean, you saw Indiana jump straight to the top. They were the worst team in the Big Ten. But yeah, I just think that's a problem for the Big 12 and the Big 12. There's too many there's too many sports like now to compete, and the Big 12 they need to figure out how to spend their money because I think Texas Tech is just going all in on football and they have all their money in football, and baseball kind of gets hung out to dry. I mean, TCU is supposed to be really good this year in baseball,
and they played a great schedule. They played a fantastic schedule, but they've lost. I mean, you got to win some of those games.
Yeah, I mean, and they won 1-3 one weekend, and now they're 2-2, and now they're haven't been seeing the Big 12 baseball or the D1 baseball rankings for the past 2 weeks, and Arizona State's making a late surge. West Virginia is just on their own. They're rolling. I mean, West Virginia baseball has looked really good, but I mean, that's it. I mean, the other Big 12 teams are not even really not that good.
I guess what my point is though here we're talking about baseball. Will the WV baseball team have to go through the same scratching?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
That the women's basketball team just had. I mean, if you think
does that hurt their resume at all?
Yeah, right. For them being in the Big 12 and being able to say, "Oh, well, we're one of the best teams in the Big 12 in college baseball," does that hold a lot of water?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, well, I think it'll be. I don't think we'll be able to see that because I think in the tournament down the line, I forget who West Virginia they lost to. LSU last year.
Yeah, that was in the Super Regional.
Yeah,
that was in the Sweet
See,
16.
I mean, West Virginia baseball won the regular season in the Big 12, and then they played LSU.
They played they played in the Clemson Regional,
right,
and won the Clemson Regional.
Yeah.
They beat Kentucky.
Yeah,
in
they beat
baseball.
an SEC school. Yeah, and then they ran into a buzzsaw, and then lost to LSU. So I mean, that's like the gap right now is that's how far it is between the top team in the SEC and maybe the top team in the Big 12.
How does the Big 12 close the gap? Money? Is that the number one answer?
I think that's the answer to everything in college athletics right now, unfortunately. It's just dollar signs. But like I said, since COVID, I think Brett Yormark, the commissioner, has done well to work. I think he's been very open with the schools. I think he's a personable guy. I think he works close with people, and I think that's what it takes to kind of do something as a collective unit. Obviously it's all these teams competing against each other, but at the end of the day, we are the Big 12 conference made up of 16 schools, and it is all of our responsibilities to maintain the status of the conference when it comes to the broader scheme of the national, look of things. But, I mean, money is everything when it comes to college athletics right now. So
spreading the money, too, I think is important. I mean, Texas Tech can't dump their entire –
yeah, you made a good point about all the different sports there are. Like, there really are so many sports out there to take care of. Like, when it comes to money, it's crazy.
So, Spence, if it comes down to money, who's got it in the Big 12?
Oh, all those teams that are pumping oil down in Texas, TCU, Texas Tech.
The coal money's not coming in for West Virginia.
I guess West Virginia needs to find some. I mean, West Virginia, I know Rich has reached out to multiple people. I know Pat McAfee has talked about how Rich has reached out to him personally and asked for money about this for one recruit at one time. But, I mean, Pat McAfee has a lot of money and not anywhere near the money down in Texas. But, yeah, in those other schools, too, like Cincinnati and Kansas and all the other schools around the area, they need to find money and to be able to compete. And you need to spread that money. You can't have one sport that's just really good. You need to spread it out. The SEC does a really good job of making sure – the big sports, whether that's men's basketball, baseball, softball, and women's basketball and football, they spread it out pretty evenly, and they just have a lot of money to go around.
I was going to say
that's why,
definitely because they just have
they
it,
just
right?
have a lot of money to go around. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you about with that. I guess what Rich is trying to do for the football team at least is trying to find some 4-stars who are, after 1 year, kicked to the curb, and hopefully you can develop them and close the gap that way instead of closing the gap financially with buying players in the portal.
Yeah, like I said, I just think the focus, don't focus on beating these teams, beating them out. You're not going to beat them out when it comes to.
When you say these teams, you're referring
to the conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten. The Big 12 should not focus on being the best. As far as money, dollar sign, you're never going to have the most money, but. You can still compete and be competitive, I think, on a national scale. Like Spencer said, as long as you allocate your funding in the correct way and do it enough to where everybody can benefit from it a little bit. But there's levels to it, right? So it's tough. It's when we talk about the SEC schools being able to do that, it's because they just have all that money. So it's almost hard to compare it, but you have to really, because
the fact that West Virginia likely will never be one of those big NIL, millions and millions, just toss it around kind of schools. Does that add to the aura or add to the accomplishments, I guess, that Mark Kellogg pulled off, and then possibly what Steve Sabins is continuing to do at the baseball program? Does that add to their accomplishments?
Yeah, well, I think it makes it a lot more impressive. They're just not throwing money at people, and I think the other way they can close the gap, just to go back on that, is just coaching. I think coaching is going to be the key, because I mean you could develop like Rich is doing, like Steve Sabins did, like Mark Kellogg did. I mean, Mark Kellogg, Jordan Harrison wasn't a premier player out of the portal or anything, but he brought her over and coached her up and coached up a lot of his players, and that's how they kind of closed the gap there. But then, as you saw, the raw size of Kentucky is just was too much for Western to handle.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned that. I think when you watch Jordan Harrison play today, you obviously see this spark plug of a point guard who could pretty much play for anyone out there. She has that kind of talent. Coming out of high school, I believe she had 3 Division I offers and none from the power schools. Stephen F. Austin with Mark Kellogg, he snatched her up and got her to sign, and then brought her with him to Morgantown. But when you look at Jordan Harrison today, there's no way you say, well, that's a girl who only deserved 3 Division I
right.
scholarship.
Yeah, I think that's a beauty of college athletics nowadays too, right? If you're a kid out there that is wanting to play college sports and you're getting looked at from Division II, even if you don't have any Division I offers, you can go out there and make a name for yourself. You have 4 years to do that, and you can if 1 year you have a really special year. Now, obviously, Jordan Harrison came with Mark Kellogg, and she probably played decent at Stephen F. Austin her freshman year, but she might have not even had that many minutes if you think about it, too,
no,
right?
She was.
Did she play for him?
Yeah,
okay,
she
good,
was a starter,
good.
yeah.
Because I know that they were still 25 wins down there every year, too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just think it's a really great story, and just anybody can nowadays in college athletics can have a great year, and I mean even just. I made this point to somebody the other day. You get these teams in the NCAA tournament that are mid-majors, and then you have one player that goes off for like 30 points against Duke or something, and at halftime his phone's being blown up by half the country. Yeah. So just any moment, any time, you can really make that name for yourself, and do something for your sporting career as far as the trajectory.
Spence, real quick before we close this up, spring football starts this week. What have we got on tap this week with the Mountaineers?
Well, later today we got good old Rick Trickett speaking for the first time since coming back to West Virginia. So that'll be.
This is where we needed Matt.
When was his last press conference?
We needed Matt here today so we could do his Rick Trickett impersonation.
Be my first time talking to Rick Trickett. I've heard a lot of stories from multiple different people. I finally get to see him in action today. His press conference was postponed. It was supposed to be 2 weeks ago on last Thursday. And it got canceled for some reason.
He still got you going at dinner time?
Yeah, 6 o'clock tonight, of course. So if anybody, by the time this comes out, it'll be 2 days past. Yeah. So we'll be looking at next week's press conferences. But yeah, we got Rich Rod, of course, as always. He was in attendance last night for the basketball game. He was
right there in the front row, right?
Yeah, they got him doing his the stroke clapping before the before. I don't know how that's a neutral site, but that's a different topic. They had him doing that, and then we have Ben Cutter speaking also, who's one of the only linebackers that's coming back. So he'll be a big impact next year running Zach Alley's defense. So yeah, some fun stories that should come out of today. And in the next couple of days, and then a couple of weeks now, we'll be in.
About to be April, man.
Yeah, we'll be on.
I was going to say real quick the spring. What is it? The spring festival? What's it called?
Go Blue Festival. I think that's what they're calling it nowadays. We got
the spring frolic.
We got what we're going to call it. We'll probably have that's on April 18th.
April 18th. Okay.
Yep, and that will be a little practice probably for the fans to watch. Maybe some one-on-one stuff and. Not a lot going on, but you get to see Michael Hawkins, hopefully, unless he, knocking wood, he doesn't get injured. Yeah. So at least I can see him.
A couple of the receivers they signed.
Some of the receivers, some big offensive linemen. There's a lot of you have to bring your notebook to write down all the players' names because he won't recognize a single one. Other than
a
maybe
program before
Scotty
you
Fox, yeah. But yeah, and then there's a concert after, so a couple weeks, and we'll be at Mountaineer Field, and then it'll be in the off season. And we'll have. A lot of time waiting.
Can't have a festival without music.
Yeah. Spence, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
We close today with a trip to Charleston, where the boys and girls basketball state tournaments just wrapped up. Parkersburg High defeated Parkersburg South. That was the Battle of Wood County.
Yes,
right?
It was.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
That they captured the Class AAA girls state title. On the boys' side, number 1 GW, George Washington, defeated Spring Mills to win the boys' Class Quad A state title. Michael, you were in Charleston for both of those weeks.
Yeah.
What were your take on the state tournaments as a whole?
Yeah, great time in Charleston as always. This is my 5th tournament already, which I cannot believe. I've been doing this for 5 years now. But yeah, I'll start with the girls. Really good Quad A tournament. I think the biggest takeaway Parkersburg obviously won the state title, and they are a very senior-laden team. A lot of seniors in their starting lineup. A lot of great players, probably some all-state names that you're going to see coming out this week. But the rest of the class, I mean, Quad A next year is going to be a bloodbath when it comes to girls basketball because
you think?
Yes, and I'll tell you why.
Morgantown High's got a bunch of good players.
I'll tell you why. Morgantown High has one senior they're losing. They'll bring back Kaylee Kellogg off of injury. They'll bring back Brenna Nelson off of injury. Those are their top two players. Kaylee Kellogg is probably one of the best players in the state, if not the best player in the state. But you got George Washington, who was also in the semifinals, who has the Gatorade Player of the Year, and Jariah Pryor, who's only a junior. Another junior named Brianna Breckenridge. She's also all-state caliber level. GW is only losing one senior next year, or this year, I should say. So they're going to be another problem next year. Parkersburg South, who was in the state title game, who defeated GW in the semifinals, they start 3 freshmen, Justin. And they went to the state title game, and they beat Parkersburg in the regular season, too.
Well, University High almost
University
had
High,
Parkersburg
yes,
beat in
absolutely.
the first round.
And that's another thing I needed to talk about.
I mean,
too.
that's
I'm glad
kind of
you
a
said that.
pretty good run for Parkersburg.
Yes, absolutely. And beating UHS in overtime in the first game by 1 point, which is just one of the best games I've ever seen in person, covered in person. But yeah, that's the biggest takeaway from Quad A girls is that a lot of these players that we see this year, I think, I can't say any names, but the all-state list will drop tomorrow when you're hearing this on Thursday, on Friday. I think that there were only, out of 10 on the first team all-state Quad A girls, there were only 4 seniors,
okay,
I think. So 6 of those were either sophomore, freshmen, or juniors, which was pretty incredible. And none of them were even Kaylee Kellogg. So
right.
there you go. So, yeah, it was a really good tournament. Congratulations to Parkersburg. Like I said, a lot of seniors. Really, their coach, Chris Murray, is one of the most charismatic coaches you'll find. He's hilarious every time you talk to him. Such a great guy. They really earned the title down there for the girls. So.
Speaking of Kaylee Kellogg, I mean, she was down and around and, back in those back hallways there of the Coliseum.
Basically an assistant coach at this point.
Yeah. She looks like she's moving around pretty good.
Absolutely.
I mean, she looks like she's going to be fully healthy by next year.
Yeah, and I think she's cleared to do everything physically, but obviously you're not going to come and play basketball at a state tournament level for your first go in the year, although they could have used her, and although she probably would have made an impact knowing how good she is. But yeah, she's doing well. I mean, I'm friends with her family too, and her mom on social media. And her mom puts up. They have the shooting machine in the WVU practice facility that she shoots on, and she'll put pictures up of the numbers. And man, I'm not even lying when I tell you, Kaylee will shoot 500 threes and make 425 of them.
That's like a Papa Shot, right? Remember the old Papa Shot?
It must feel like Papa Shot to her because she's putting the ball in the basket. So yeah, I hope she's doing well. I'm glad her recovery's gone well because personally I know how tough that a knee injury can be, especially how tough it is to have a knee injury and then try to return and be who you were, and mentally and physically, especially mentally, that can have a lot of toll on you. So yeah, but like you said, she had always been around the team, on the sidelines, in the warm-up lines, cheering the team on every time out, everything. So
on the boys' side, GW defeated Spring Mills. Spring Mills was the 3 seed, right?
They were. This is the second straight year that Spring Mills and George Washington battled for the state championship. Last year, Spring Mills got the best of GW, and this year, Noah Lewis and GW won the state championship.
How big is Noah Lewis?
Noah Lewis is a man. I'll tell you that. He is 6'8" or 6'7", one of the two, and he's probably around 210, 215.
It's a legit 6'7"?
Yeah, legit 6'7", legit D1 athlete. He's going to Wright State next year, where he'll have a chance to make an impact. And like we were talking about earlier, who knows what can happen in 1 year of college ball. So, but yeah, Noah Lewis, incredible performance in Charleston. I think he had 32 and 14 in the semifinals. In the state championship, they did get a contribution from sophomore Dominic Sprouse, who actually led them in scoring in the state title game with 28 points. That game actually went to double overtime, by the way. GW won by 6 points, 64-58. So
yeah, no, that's the part that bugs me.
Well,
you go to
we
double
talked about
overtime.
this yesterday.
You go to double overtime, and you're still only scoring 58 points.
Yeah,
boy.
that's fair. But like we said yesterday, Morgantown defeated Spring Mills 2 years ago in overtime, 33-32.
Yeah,
and obviously that's kind of how Spring Mills wanted the game to go because you want to slow the game down against Sharon Young. But I digress to I think that's just how the game just went. And Spring Mills, they might have gotten all their shots out against Morgantown. They shot the lights out against MHS in the semifinals. So I don't know if they just lost all their offense in that game or what it was. But no, good state final game with probably, I would say, the two best teams throughout the season when it comes to Quad A. I know Morgantown had the 2 seed, but they didn't play Spring Mills in the regular season. I thought after watching the game, Morgantown and Spring Mills, I think it would have benefited Morgantown to play them. Obviously, that's kind of easy to say, but they were a completely different team. I mean, they lost 3 or 4 starters from last year. But they still came out and just shot the lights out, shot 11 for 17 from 3-point range against Morgantown. So great tournament, great. I mean, not even just the Quad A, every boys tournament was absolutely incredible. We had some upsets, we had some near upsets. GW actually almost lost to Huntington, the 8th seed,
first round,
by 1 point, and Huntington could have had a chance to win if they had the ball in their hands at the last second. So great tournament down there. Boys and girls basketball in West Virginia is in a really good spot right now with the young talent and with the competition on the court right now. So
big question here now. So for the first time in a long time, I say long time because I don't remember the exact year the last time it happened, but Morgantown High lost in the semifinals of the boys tournament and the girls tournament.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time, there wasn't a Morgantown High team in the state finals.
Right.
So what's your take on that? Is that something? Is that the beginning of a trend? Do the Mohegans break through next year? Mm-hmm. What do we look at there?
Yeah, this would have been the 6th straight year that the Morgantown girls would have played in the championship.
Okay, so you had the number. Okay.
Yeah, and they've only won 1 in that time, but they have made it to the championship Saturday, if you will, that often. But to me, it's just the rest of the state kind of to being at the level. Morgantown boys lost obviously their greatest player ever in Sharon Young 2 years ago, and every year it seems like Morgantown loses a really good senior class, but they don't rebuild, they reload, right? So I think it really is just the rest of the state kind of being on that level this year. And like
closing
we said,
the gap.
Yeah, like we said, Morgantown had a few injuries on the girls' side, but man, next year it's wide open for Quad A and girls. But yeah, I think it's just the talent in the state is a little more spread out in the last year or two. So
Michael, we have made it through season 2. How about it?
Wow, it's great.
Hey, that is all the time we have for today. We really want to thank everyone for listening in. We want to thank Spencer Ripchick of the Dominion Post for joining us earlier. We will be next week. We will be back next week. Fingers crossed if I can get my mouth to work here. Fingers crossed for the opening of season 3. Until then, Michael, hey, take us home.
We want to thank you guys so much for joining us today and every day on the Extra Medium Sports Podcast, brought to you by the Hotel Morgan. Select a wedding venue where you can host your perfect ceremony and grand reception in one of our 2 magnificent ballrooms. From the restored historic architecture to the stylish, comfortable guest rooms for your party, Hotel Morgan provides an environment where every guest feels cared for in the heart of downtown Morgantown. Now booking 2026 dates in our brand new 8th floor ballroom. We'll see you all next week on the Extra Medium Sports Podcast. And as Matt Amory always says, the couches are safe, but the takes are on fire.